Hey everyone, welcome back to the Nerds of the Multiverse channel. Today we're going to be doing a breakdown and review of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I'm going to be touching on many clips from this film. It's going to be a spoiler-filled video, so if you've not seen the movie yet, I recommend doing that first. Maybe save this video for later and come back to it after you've seen the movie. But it's going to be a fun one. We're going to break down many scenes, many clips. I'm going to give my overall review of the movie and my opinion, and it's going to be a good one, so make sure you stick around to the end if you have seen the movie, and if you haven't, come back. So starting off, I'm going to give my brief opinion about this movie. We'll talk a little bit more about it at the end, but I loved this film. That's the shortest way I could put it. I love this film. The art style of this movie was insane. I love how it changed between different multiverses, and you get to see different art styles. I love the story. The story was so well connected. There was some very serious moments, which is a little bit different from the first film. The first film was a lot more lighthearted, funny, which this movie still has a lot of funny moments, but this movie had a darker sense to it, and it was written very, very well. The fan service in this film, absolutely awesome to see. There's so many great moments in this film, and I smiled from ear to ear for most of it. There were some scenes where I was legit scared and terrified, and also this movie, the way it ends, it really makes you kind of upset, because we have to wait until March of next year before we even get the next one. But it's going to be worth it, because this movie has you on the edge of your seat, and I can only imagine what the next one's going to be. So let's start off with this breakdown. The movie starts off not with Miles Morales, but it starts off with Gwen, and we actually get a lot of Gwen's backstory in the first 20-ish minutes of the film. Gwen is from Earth 65, which in her universe, the art style is very different from what Miles Morales' looks like. Her art style for this universe is like watercolor themed, and it seems like the colors shift and change based off of the characters' moods, which I thought was very, very interesting. It was a very good way to tell what was happening in the scene, like if you couldn't pick it up. But it was very beautiful to see, and it kind of threw me off at first, because I was like, wow, this is different, but I liked it a lot. Gwen's missing Miles a ton. I think it's the same for Miles, because Miles misses everyone, but Gwen is really missing him because he was her first friend since Peter of her universe, and I think that she is having a hard time trying to deal with everything. So she's back in her universe. She's still doing her Spider-Woman thing, and she's killing it. We get a little bit of a backstory of how her Peter Parker died. So Earth 65 Peter Parker was not Spider-Man. Obviously, in that universe, Gwen was the Spider character. So Peter was just normal. He's still a very, very smart kid. He's your best friend in high school. But Peter was bullied a lot in high school, and he wanted to be different, and he wanted to be like Gwen. He wanted to be noticed. So in this universe, Peter Parker actually turns himself into the Lizard, which was crazy to see. And I really enjoyed seeing a different take of it, and I thought it was very interesting. And he actually dies in that universe. Like, him and Gwen are fighting, and a building falls on him, and he gets very severely injured, and he dies. And it's so sad to see. Gwen Stacy's dad, Captain Stacy, he blames Spider-Woman for the death of Peter, and he has like a whole hunt to capture her, because that's his daughter's best friend who just died, and he thinks that Spider-Woman's responsible for it. So it was very cool to see that. J.K. Simmons is the GOAT. He was back as J. Jonah Jameson in his cameo on the TV in Gwen's universe, and it was just so cool to see him again, this time in an animated form. Nobody else can play that role. Nobody else can play that role, ever. He is forever going to be J. Jonah Jameson. So Gwen goes out to do her Spider-Woman thing. There's actually a variant of the Vulture in her universe right now. He's not supposed to be there, and since the multiverse is like shattering around everybody, these characters are kind of just showing up out of the blue. So she's fighting him. She can tell he's not from her universe. Like, he looks like he's from the Renaissance era, and they actually show off Leonardo da Vinci's designs when they talk about how Vulture was designed, like his wings and everything, so, and his weapons. And so it's really cool to see him. So obviously he's not meant to be there. His name is Adriano Tumino instead of Adrian Toomes, so he's kind of like an ancestor type. But then this is where Miguel O'Hara and Jessica Drew show up to help Gwen return Vulture to his own time period. They begin to battle, and it's a really, really cool scene seeing all them fight. Miguel blames Gwen and the others from the Into the Spider-Verse movie for breaking the multiverse, and he also blames Doctor Strange and Tom Holland's Peter Parker, as he mentions that nerdy kid from Earth 199999. So after the fight's over, they kind of get everything wrapped up. Captain Stacy holds Gwen at gunpoint, and she is forced to unmask herself, and he decides to still try and arrest her after she unmasks herself. He cannot put himself in the position to see her as his daughter in this moment. He only sees her as the person who killed Peter Parker, even though she didn't, and she explains that to him. But he is just so blinded in the moment. He's doing his job. He cares more about his job than her. So this really upsets Gwen. Like, obviously, imagine like your parent telling you that they don't care about you, basically, and they're going to arrest you for something you didn't even do. So Gwen decides to join the Secret Spider Society, and she asks if she can go with Jess and Miguel, and she gets to go with them, and Miguel is very reluctant to even let her join, but they let her come in the end, and she ends up joining them. So now we fast forward to Miles' universe, Earth 1610, and this is the first appearance of the Spot, like right off rip. We see the Spot trying to rob an ATM because he no longer has a job due to an accident in the first film with the Collider, which I predicted in my breakdown video. Miles explains what he's been up to. This movie takes place roughly a year and 4 months after the first film, and he's been dealing with missing his friends, Uncle Aaron. He's been doing some stuff with Jeopardy. He's even like endorsed baby powder and then apologized for it. It was a very funny scene, seeing like his recap of everything that was going on. So that was awesome. Miles is late to his conference at school because he's in the middle of fighting the Spot, and he traps him on the roof and proceeds to go to his conference. The fight's not over yet. He kind of just wraps things up. He tries to just get the police to go there, but right now he's just focused on getting to his conference because he's late. So Miles goes to his conference. Obviously, he's with his parents, talking about his grades. He got a B in Spanish, which Mom was infuriated by because obviously he's Puerto Rican. Then Miles leaves in the middle of his conference to resume his battle with the Spot, and they end up in Wilson Fisk's old Collider site at Alchemex. This is where Spot explains the spider from Earth 42 that bit Miles was not meant for Miles. It was from a different multiverse, and he brought it there. Spot was the scientist who got hit with the bagel in the last film as well, when Miles and Peter B were leaving the lab, and so he got hit with the bagel by Miles. And so that's another reason why the Spot doesn't really like Miles. And they literally ended up creating each other, though, because obviously the spider that Jonathan Ohm brought to this universe, which bit Miles, and Jonathan Ohm was actually in the room with the Collider when Miles destroyed it, so that caused him to turn into the Spot. So we end up seeing Spot. He literally kicks himself in the butt on accident. Like, one of his portals open up behind him, and he kicks himself in the butt, and he knocks himself into himself, which is insane. And he is now using the portals within himself to travel to different multiverses. We see a classic universe, like really old comic-y type. We see a Lego universe, which is designated Earth 13122. We get to see Tom Hardy's Venom universe. We see Mrs. Channe, and it was so cool. That's Earth 688. And Spot realizes, after he's been traveling through all these things, that he can travel through the multiverse, and he wants to go get more Spots because he wants to be able to basically absorb all reality and destroy everything. So Miles is late to his dad's party for becoming police captain now, and he had to pick up the cakes on the way, and he stops a few people on the way. There's crime all the time, so Miles is stopping them on the way. The cakes that he got for his dad were wrecked, and there was a bunch of lettering on them, and after he'd been swinging around and fighting everybody, they turned out to say, "I am not proud," which was not very good. His parents were very upset with how irresponsible he's been lately, and they end up grounding him. So Miles goes to his room, Gwen shows up in his room, they end up going web-slinging throughout the city, and they thread the needle, as you would see in the movie, which is a very cool scene, just seeing how they interact with each other. Miles has obviously improved in a year and 4 months, but it's not that he's actually worked on all this. Like, he has a little bit, but he's actually just copying everything that Gwen does, and it's just a really cool scene to see them swing around the city. Gwen is really there because of the Spot. Like, She wants to see Miles, and she really misses him, but she's not supposed to be there. She plants a drone to spy on the Spot's apartment as well as they're swinging around. So now Gwen and Miles go up, and they're on a building. It's kind of like Miles' spot, kind of how like the other Peters and Spider-Man No Way Home talked about like where they went to just kind of relax. So Miles and Gwen are chilling, and they're sitting there, and Gwen mentions how in every universe Gwen Stacy falls for Spider-Man, and it never ends well. Well, this is probably because they have feelings for each other. It's obvious. We get to see like kind of like how this is true because her own Peter Parker died in her universe, and basically every universe she dies, like the comic universe. We get to see it in Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man with Gwen Stacy. They showed the death of Gwen Stacy in that film. So Miles basically says, well, maybe it could be different this time. So they hang out back at the party, and she gets to meet his parents. She ends up having to leave because obviously she's going to go back to the Spot's apartment. Jess is trying to call her. So after this scene, Miles is kind of bummed out that Gwen just left, like he didn't really get to say like really goodbye. But him and his mom have a heart-to-heart moment, and she gives him some really good advice. She basically tells him, never let anyone tell you that you don't belong. And I think that's a very good message for everybody today. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter where you're at. If you have some really big dreams and you have goals and you want to work somewhere, don't let anybody ever tell you that you can't. Like, that's very important, and it's always good to do what you want to do. Don't ever let anybody tell you you don't belong there, because you do. So Miles follows Gwen to Dr. Ohm's apartment, and then he sees her go through the portal. So Miles follows her through the portal and ends up in Spider-Man India's universe, which is Earth 50101. And let me tell you, Spider-Man India is so funny. So funny. I loved seeing him. Like, there's so many different moments where he just makes you laugh out loud, and a lot of it's in the chai tea scene with him and Miles. That was awesome. So definitely one of the funniest characters in this film. Miles, Gwen, and Spider-Man India fight the Spot, and you can tell that the dark matter has begun to take up more of the Spot's body, and he basically makes it to the Manbattan Alchemix lab for the Collider. He wants to get there to get more Spots, like we've mentioned before. Miles tries to stop him. There's a force field between them that basically has locked them out from stopping him, and Miles is trying to stop him by breaking the force field with his Venom charge, kind of like in the video game. And this is where Hobie Brown shows up. Spider-Punk is finally on the screen. It was so cool to see him. He's designed from many different textured and colored newspapers and posters, and he does what he wants. He is never told what to do. Like, if he doesn't want to do it, he's not doing it. Like, he's against all authority. So he's funny also. Very cool, and it was awesome to see him on the screen for the first time. So the Spot activates the Collider and fuses with the dark matter. He looks terrifying in the scene. Like, in this moment, I was legit scared because, you know, he went from this comical joke villain in the beginning, and now he looks terrifying. So it was actually a really creepy scene. Miles and the Spot's mind actually connect, and you see a black and white future of Dr. Ohm's plans to absorb all reality and cause the deaths of police captains Inspector Singh and Captain Morales. So after that scene, Spider-Man India, he saves his girlfriend and many people on a bus, and Miles ends up saving Inspector Singh, which was not supposed to happen. We'll explain that a little bit later, but this disrupts a canon event, and it causes dark matter to start consuming the city. So Jessica Drew and her team arrive to contain it, and she takes the others back to Nueva New York, which is Earth 928, and this is where the Spider Society HQ is. And let me tell you, this is the scene from the trailer where we see so many spider people. It is ridiculous the amount of spider people we see. Like the PlayStation Spider-Man, we see different marks like Mark 1, 2, and 3. We see a Web Slinger, we see Spider-Cat, Spider-Rex. Like, we see so many variants. They confirmed there are 280 spider people that were created for this film, and 95 of them are named characters. That is insane. We also see a tour of the multiversal anomaly villains who have been captured. There's multiple Doc Ocks, there's Mysterios, there's a video game section where we see PlayStation Spider-Man for the first time. There's a Kraven, a Rhino, and this scene literally had my jaw drop. There is a Prowler there, which, you know, obviously Miles Morales' uncle's the Prowler, but it was a live action variant, and it was played by Donald Glover. And in case you forgot, Donald Glover is in the MCU. And it just blew my mind. So he is Miles Morales' uncle. He actually mentions in the MCU about his nephew, his birthday party. So that means there's probably a Miles Morales in the MCU already. Maybe he's not going to become Spider-Man. Maybe this one will be. Who knows? But it was so awesome to see Donald Glover on the screen. And seeing live action and animated on the screen was so cool. So basically, they take all these anomalies and they put them in the Go Home machine, which scans your DNA and puts you back into your universe. So they transfer all these variants back to their universes. After we see the Go Home machine, this is where Miles meets Miguel O'Hara. We also get to see Peter B. Parker and his daughter Mayday Parker arriving. So Miguel explains the multiverse, which looks very similar to the MCU Sacred Timeline when he's showing it, and he explains the web of life and destiny, which is what they call it in the comics, but Miguel calls it the Arachno-Humanoid Polymultiverse. That's a very long name. It's kind of stupid, which they even say. And Miles calls it the Spider-Verse, which Miguel thought was also stupid, but it's easier to say. So there's these nodes that indicate canon events on the Spider-Verse timeline, basically. And canon events are basically events that have to happen. So these are specific events that have to happen in each Spider character's life. So that's getting bit by the spider. It's Peter and MJ, so some type of relationship. It's the Venom symbiote. Mentor figures dying, like Uncle Aaron, Uncle Ben, sometimes Peter Parker. The event ASM 90, which is basically meaning the Amazing Spider-Man issue number 90, and this is the issue where Captain Stacy dies. The police captain always dies. And this scene made me smile from ear to ear, because in that scene we see Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man from the Amazing Spider-Man 1 when Captain Stacy died and Andrew Garfield's over his body. They showed footage from it. It was so cool to see that, and I was smiling from ear to ear to see Andrew in this movie. So these events have to happen. The multiverse could collapse if they don't. Miguel tried to bypass a canon event himself one time, which was the event of his character dying, and he wanted to spend time with his daughter and be happy, but the reality began to erase around him, and it eventually did completely. So this is very similar to an absolute point that they mentioned in the MCU. Like it's an event that has to happen, and if it doesn't, there's going to be an incursion. Miguel traps Miles when Miles realizes that his dad is going to die. He's about to be the police captain. So Miles is trapped. He wants to leave and he can't. But this is where Hobie Brown reminds Miles to use the palm of his hands and not his fingertips when he's trying to do his Venom Blast. It's going to make a way bigger explosion. And he mentioned that earlier to him when he was trying to stop the Spot. So all the spider people in this moment, except for Hobie Brown, begin to chase Miles. And Hobie is the only real one in this instance. I think he could be a potential mentor or very good friend of Miles in the future, because he's the only one in this moment who's not trying to stop him. And it's because Hobie does what he wants. He's not told what to do. So when they're all being told to stop Miles by 2099, the pointing meme has been recreated, just like it was in Spider-Man No Way Home. They recreated it, which we see in the trailer, but it was funny to see it in the movie still. So this is where a massive chase scene happens. This is when all the spider people begin chasing Miles. They're trying to stop him because Miles is trying to go back to his universe and basically stop a canon event. It showcases so many variants. This whole scene is so long, but it is one of the most awesome scenes in the entire movie. There's heroes and there's villains, and it's really cool to see. You see different eras of Spider-Man, even from the 60s. There's the 60s, there's the 90s, there's the early 2000s. There's so many different eras, and being a Spider-Man fan, it was so awesome to see all of this on a screen at one time. So I had a blast watching that scene. During the chase, there's a moment where Miles is kind of hiding, but Peter B catches up to him. He tries to have a heart-to-heart with him and basically explain things to Miles. He tells Miles how special he is to him, and he's the reason why he even had a family. And he wants Miles to know that he's not betraying him. He wants him to know that he still cares about him. Everyone ends up catching up with him. And this is where Miles and Miguel fight on top of the train that is in Nueva York. And Miles overloads Miguel's suit. This whole battle was epic. But Miles overloads his suit and claims that he has intentionally lured all the spider people onto the train so he could leap off back to the base. So Miles sneaks past Spider-Bite to the Go Home machine, and he scans himself. It scans his DNA, and instead of stopping him, Spider-Bite actually lets him go home. he lands in a universe with a green and red color scheme, which is the same as Earth 1610 currently, where Miguel and Jess go to, along with Scarlet Spider, giving a great fake out. And you know why if you've seen this film. It was a huge fake out. And remember that Miles' DNA has the spider from Earth 42 in it. So he didn't return home. He went to Earth 42, not 1610. So Gwen also got sent back home as well because she refuses to stop Miles. Peter B returns to his universe as well with Mayday. And going back to Gwen, Gwen sees her dad for the very first time in a long time. And he actually reveals to her that he has resigned from being a cop. And that Hobie dropped off a new multiverse traveling wristband for Gwen since they took hers. So we see Miles swinging through Times Square trying to get home to save his dad. Back in Earth 1610, Scarlet Spider is camping outside Miles' room, but Gwen takes him out. And as this is happening, we see Miles returning home also, so we keep getting tricked. Like, it just looks like these two scenes are going hand in hand. So then Miles is in his room and he has a conversation with his mom, at least who he thinks is his mom, and she asked him like why his hair is different, and she doesn't remember giving him any advice like he had mentioned. And Miles reveals to her that he is Spider-Man, which is a huge step for him. It took him like a while to build up to it. And she asks, who's Spider-Man? Which, you know, in the moment we kind of just think that she just doesn't pay attention and like she's old, like she just doesn't know who Spider-Man is. But there is no Spider-Man in this universe, because the spider who went to Miles' universe was not there to create Spider-Man. Earth 1610 Miles was never supposed to be Spider-Man. There was already one in 1610. And if Miles never got bit, Peter Parker of that universe would never have died. So Miles realizes he's not in the right universe in this moment. And this is when a huge twist just happens. Uncle Aaron walks through the door. And in this universe, he's the one who's alive, and Jeff, Miles' dad, is dead in this world. So Uncle Aaron asked Miles the same thing, why he changed his hair. And, you know, it's just kind of weird, like they're acting weird towards each other. And they go up to the rooftop, and you get to see a city which is filled with crime, because there is no Spider-Man in this world. And we see a mural of Miles' dad, instead of the one that Uncle Aaron had. So Miles gets knocked out on this roof. His spider sense never went off, and it's probably because he can't sense himself. Like, he can't sense Earth 42 Miles Morales. He wakes up tied to Aaron's punching bag, and we see the Prowler show up, and it's revealed to be that universe's Miles Morales, which was an insane scene to see. Say that 5 times fast. Basically, we see a small conversation with them, and it looks like Earth 42 Miles is about to beat the living crap out of Earth 1610 Miles. Then we see a scene with Gwen, and she's reuniting with Peter B and Mayday, and we hear her drum solo from the very beginning of the film. And she's getting her new band, like it was mentioned. It's her, Peter B, Mayday, Hobie, Spider-Man India, Spider-Bite, Spider-Man The War, Penny Parker, and Ham. Spider-Ham is back. So, that was the film. I was absolutely blown away by this movie, and when I tell you that the plot twists where Miles went back to a different universe and, you know, all of that happened, you know, it makes a whole lot of sense, and you kind of start picking it up because it's like, it just seems weird. I think my biggest indication was when Miles first went to that universe, the art style seemed a little bit off, because obviously the art styles change within the universes. And I was thrown off completely a little bit, and I'm like, that doesn't look right. I'm like, he looks a little bit different. And as you start piecing things together, you really do realize, like, man, it's not the right place. And then he realizes it, and it's so cool. It was an awesome way to give a twist to the movie. The biggest complaint that I've seen people give is that we have to wait for the next movie, which I agree, because there was a comparison that I saw, and it was talking about how it felt like we got acts 1 and 2 of this film, and we're completely missing the third act, which is the huge battle. My only question is, it feels like the only thing left would be a battle. So how are they going to make that over 2 hours long? Unless like there's a lot more story that we have no idea about. But man, if there was a whole 2-hour battle of just the spider people fighting, that'd be insane. So all I know is I am looking so forward to seeing Beyond the Spider-Verse next year. It's going to be probably the most anticipated movie of the entire year, and for good reason. I give this movie a 10 out of 10, and I honestly, after having a few days to kind of just let it sink in, let myself collect my thoughts, I think this is the best Spider-Man film ever made. Like, it was that good, and I loved every minute of it, and I'd watch it so many more times. I'd watch it a billion times if I could. So good. I definitely recommend going and seeing it again if you've already seen it. If you haven't seen it already, you should not be at the end of this video. But if you haven't seen it and you listened to all this, go see it. It's worth it. Beyond the Spider-Verse is coming out March 29th of 2024. So we have roughly a little bit over 9 months, and it's going to be insane. So that's all I have for today's video. Again, make sure to go check out my other social media pages. The details will be in the description. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, and if you want to see more Marvel content such as news, rankings, theories, and more, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you never miss an upload. I love you 3000, and I will see you in the next video.